to do that.
Okay. So yeah, this is a slide about me. I'm a senior and I'm also an advisor, and that's some of the experience that I have. I'm kind of like washed up when it comes to like SWE knowledge, to be honest, but I did do it a long time ago. Yeah, I'm excited to speak to you guys and get to know you all a little bit today, and hopefully for the rest of the semester. And yeah, let's go to the next slide. I'm excited.
Heck yeah. All right, so our agenda for today, so introductions, you just met us, and then we'll be going a little bit over interview preparation, just a lot of general stuff that applies to multiple positions. Then we'll go into a little bit of specifics for different roles such as data science, software engineering, product management, quant. Then we'll be talking about what to do once you have your offers. So maybe comparing them, helping you pick between them, how to be successful once you're on the job, at your internship. Then after that, we will be doing general advice and Q&A. On the Q&A portion, again, we have a Slido. So if you have any burning questions, feel free to type them up there and we'll try our best to answer them as the presentation goes on. I'll go back and put the QR code for that since I know we have quite a few people who came since we started the introductions. But yeah, top right is a Slido, bottom left is a check-in. Feel free to scan that and we can get started. I'll give it like, I don't know, 30 seconds if anyone doesn't have a mic. All right, cool beans. Yeah, so before we get into any specifics, again, we have the Professional Development Resource Hub created by Neha, who is a fellow professional development advisor. Lots of great resources that we've talked about last week, stuff you will be hearing about today. Definitely recommend you go on there. We got an internship master list, a lot of resources. So definitely a great place to go. And we can drop the link in the thread we put on Slack later today. Yeah, so with that, we can get started. So interviews. So I'm sure a lot of you guys already know this, but interviews are like where people ask you questions, try to see if you're a good fit for the job. But they're kind of you're into the job, You've already been selected among many applicants, which congrats, that's extremely difficult to do. But now is the real grunt of the work, It's time to differentiate yourself, show your employers, that you're the best fit. Yeah, so the timeline is something that can be quite confusing just because it's very situational. Some companies have their very niche like proprietary processes. Some other companies will have something completely different. But in general, it does follow this format. Generally, you have like a recruiter email you, call you, maybe set up like an interview times, kind of get to know you. Then you'll have a phone screen. So just kind of behavioral questions. Sometimes with that, you'll have like supplemental activities. So if you're a software engineer, that could be like leak code assignments. If you're a product manager, that can be little like brain teasers, estimation type problems. So after you pass that process, you'll go into the on-site part of the interview process. So it's kind of interviews with people who are already working the role you want, or they're working in a related capacity. So what I mean by that is, say if you're interviewing for a software engineering position, maybe you'll be interviewing with some software engineers, some engineering managers, maybe some designers, that sort of thing. This portion of the interview process can be both technical and behavioral. So it's definitely a mishmash. You have to be on your feet. You have to be able to think through things that are very different. But yeah, I think a huge distinction here is that some companies like to do on-sites or like super days where you have a bunch of interviews in one day. Like it's not unheard of to have like 6, 7, 8 in one day, it can be quite grueling. Thankfully, like nowadays in our online environment, you can do them on Zoom. But it used to be that you had to like go to the office, sit through, you'd eat lunch there. It was quite a process. Yeah, and some are a little different, they'll just have you do a bunch of rounds over a few weeks, a little more chill. But yeah, just a bunch of different formats of how they can go about it. And some, before you even do the onsite, they may have you do screeners with technical folks. For example, your hiring manager will talk to you, see if they want you talking to their team. So yeah, those are some stuff you may come across in the interviewing process. Yeah, so we talked about the phone screen and the behavioral, but it may not have been super clear what it is. So it's kind of the company's way of making sure you're not a crazy axe murderer. Like there are people who apply, they just apply for the sake of it. The company doesn't really know who they are, why they want to work for the company, that sort of thing. So it's this person's job, the recruiter on the other end, to kind of see that you're a good fit, you're like a normal, well-adjusted person. And yeah, just kind of making sure that they want to go through with the expensive hiring process. So in terms of this, there's just so many different questions they can ask, but some common ones are, tell me your background. And you guys actually practiced this last week. A great way to answer that is just doing elevator pitches, where you do a minute, go over who you are, what you want, et cetera, et cetera. Another common question is, why do you want to work for this company? Finally, there are like more behavioral ones that you guys have definitely seen before if you've ever interviewed for a fast food job, et cetera. And here's a good one, like, tell me about a time you failed. How did you deal with it? Yeah, so the process of answering phone screens is pretty formulaic. Generally, you want to be super, super in depth in terms of your knowledge of the company. You'll find a lot of the time they'll ask you like, why this company? And if your answer is something simple like, oh, I think it'd be really cool. Like, it's just like, you clearly didn't put much thought into the company. They won't see much of a reason to invest in you as a potential employee. You want to be very specific. You want to know like everything about the company, right? Like the team you're potentially be working for, maybe who's on it. Maybe you have some dying questions you can ask them about it. Point being, you want to communicate to them that you really know, you did your homework, right? That you researched the company, you're someone who really wants to work there. It's like a huge red flag for them if like you can't answer like a basic question about the company right away. So make sure you have that in. And I find that that part of the process is kind of a good filter for us as the interviewees as well. There have been quite a few times where like I got to the screener, I'm researching, and then I start to realize like, oh my God, I don't care about this company. Like the topic doesn't interest me, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not only a great way for them to filter, it can be a great way for us to filter, like as you go through this process, it'll become more and more clear, like what you want, who you are, what you want, like out of your job. So yeah, definitely treat it as a two-way process. It's not just about them interviewing you, it's about you kind of interviewing them in a way. Yeah, so kind of on that end, know what position you're applying to, like, let's say you want to work for Google, right? Like your goal shouldn't be just to work for Google. It should be, oh, I want to be a SWE at Google, or I want to be a PM at Google. You have to know what the position entails and why you're interested, why you're a good fit. Because again, like if you don't have a good reason of why you want to be a SWE at Google, like why would they hire you? You have to be very specific. Make sure they know you know what you want, you know who you are, and you've done your research. Yeah, so for the behavioral questions we answered, this is kind of where I meant that it's a little formulaic. It's really good to follow the STAR methodology, which means situation, task, action, and result. So, you mention the situation that answers the question, what you had to do to solve it, how you went about solving it, and the result that came about. So here's a few questions you could apply STAR to, like times you demonstrated teamwork communication skills, time you resolved a conflict, a time you failed and how you got back up from it. Point being, like a lot of the time it's just like the same question, just reworded in different ways. So if you use STAR, have a few like rudimentary examples prepared in your head that you can apply to whatever question they give you. It's a quite a formulaic process. Like you can get good at it quite fast. Yeah, so next is knowing your resume. I've definitely fallen privy to this where like haven't updated my resume in like a few months. I apply to a job, they interview me, I'm like, wait, what was that bullet point again? I don't know the exact numbers, So make sure you know everything about your resume. You should know head to toe. Like in the end, you're an expert on you, right? Like you should know everything about your experiences. It's really embarrassing if they like ask you about an experience and you'd had mentally prepared to talk about it more in depth. So yeah, make sure you know your resume. Additionally, make sure you have a few questions prepared, again, like nothing is more a red flag if they say, hey, do you have any questions? And you're like, nope, no questions, bye bye. It's just really weird. They want to see that you're curious. They want to see that you're interested in the company. Again, you're selling yourself. So like obviously like have genuine questions. Don't make up questions for the sake of having questions. But like I assume if you want to work for the question, or for that company, you'll have questions anyways. So yeah, have specific questions, not anything that's super easily Googleable. Show them that you, the prospective employee, really want to be there. Yeah, so now it's your guys' turn. You and a partner will be taking turns being the interviewer and the interviewee. And you'll be answering the question of, give me an example of a time you managed numerous responsibilities. How did you handle that? And make sure to use the STAR formats, situation, task, action, result. Go over the situation, the task at hand, how you went about solving it, and then the result that came about. And I just want to be clear, like, you don't need to have a super fancy example. One of my favorite ones is kind of going over my experience in fast food. Like I used to work at Chick-fil-A. Lots of crazy stuff would happen, right? So one of my favorite things to do was kind of talk about all the multitasking I had to do at Chick-fil-A. Like working in drive-through, you'd have to like prep drinks, you'd have to talk to customers, you'd have to like ring them up. It was really a multifaceted process. So you don't have to have some fancy data science example. It can be quite literally any everyday thing you do, like taking care of siblings, stuff you do in SAAS, anything. Yeah, so with that, I'll put you guys into breakout rooms, and please be patient with me. This is the first time I've ever done this. Oh God. Okay, so how many of you are, 1, 2, okay. Yeah, how long should I give them? Like maybe a minute or two? No, maybe like 3 or 4 minutes.
Oh, hi, Kaveen.
Hello.
I just had a break from work, so I thought I'd stop by.
Oh yeah, for sure. More than welcome.
It's almost that hour, so I'm gonna have to go in a bit. So this was kind of good timing.
Gotcha, gotcha.
It's almost 4:30.
Ellis, I like your new Zoom picture.
Oh, thank you. I had the one with my old hair for so long. And I wanted to change it.
Yeah, I'd be like that. I should probably change mine soon. It's from like freshman year.
Oh, and tomorrow I'm actually going to my office, which is kind of cool. Except I'm kind of like I don't know who else is going except for maybe like one person. But I think I might just leave early tomorrow because I don't have much work to do.
Isn't it an SF?
Yeah, so I'll have to take bar over.
Ooh, okay, okay.
My first meeting's at 10. And I think I'll just show up at like 9:30 just to get like find how to enter the building, like that kind of stuff. Because I've never been there
Oh
before.
yeah, yeah, get like the security card and all
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Mhm. But I only have shit tomorrow from 10 to 2:30. And after that, I really don't have like work to do. So I might just leave after that. Or like finish my emails, get my update my calendar for the following week and then leave.
Wait, you're at Bain, right?
No, I'm a Parthenon.
Oh, okay, okay. How was it?
It's good. This is week 3. Um, so I finished formal training tomorrow, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And then for 2 weeks, I'm shadowing a project. Um, and then for another, no, and then after that 2 weeks is over, I'm going to actually contribute work on a real project, like my own work instead of just shadowing.
Oh hell yeah. Did you already get like matched or is it like
Oh
still
yeah, I
ongoing?
got my project assignment. I don't know, a lot of projects at my firm, because my firm does a lot of M&A work, the projects
Mhm.
have code names, which means the transaction isn't public yet. So I like legally can't tell you what I'm doing
Oh,
unless
gotcha, gotcha.
unless I'm like really vague. Like I can tell you like, oh, I'm like working with a like life sciences company on a divestiture. Like I can say like that stuff, but I can't say like my client is like ABC and they're acquiring company X, Y. Like that's literally illegal. I can't do that.
Gotcha,
Unless the
gotcha.
transaction is like post-close and it's public, then it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
But often the transactions that my practice does aren't public.
Makes sense, makes sense.
They're like code names. So you feel like an FBI agent or something like that.
That's funny. All right, all right. I'm gonna close the breakout rooms. Yeah. Oh, it does it in 60 seconds. Okay, that's fine.
Was everyone just like waiting? Is it like the timer?
Yeah, I like the timer that was like, oh, you have 60 seconds left.
Okay. Yeah. I gotta go to my meeting, but it was nice coming by.
All right, bye.
Bye, see you around. Goodbye.
All right, amazing. It looks like everyone's back. Um, yeah, does anyone want to share their answer? Yeah, no worries if not. I can just kind of give a basic example of how I could answer it. Yeah, so I guess I can just give the fast food example. Situation, had a lot to do. Task, have to manage it in a super efficient way. Make sure I get all my work done without any spillover. Action, I created I don't know, a system with my coworker to kind of split the work evenly to make sure nothing like got forgotten. Result, we had a super efficient and fast drive through. Yeah, so that's like a super rudimentary example. Can definitely get more complicated as you get more experience working in teams, have more complicated work experiences. But you'll find that using the STAR methodology really generalizes well, and passing behaviorals become easier and easier as time goes on. So yeah, keep at it. Should be a good time. Yeah, so now we can do brief overviews of role-specific interviews. And I just want to be really clear on the purpose of this part of the presentation. So we're just gonna like briefly go over different types of interviews like SWE, data science, quant, product management. But this is meant more as like an intro to them, like what it kind of looks like, how you can go about it, the first steps to get started. And then later on in the semester, we'll have like more in-depth sessions like for SWE, data science, quant, product management, we'll have workshops going over the super specifics, what exactly you have to do to land a role in those industries. This one was just more of like a way to get your toes wet, getting you an idea of what goes on. So yeah, with that, Frank can take it away.
Yeah, all right. So like Kevin said, this is just going to be like a rough overview. But yeah, let's get into it. All right, so like coding questions, I think this is mostly going to be SWE data science. If you're doing QR, you might get some coding questions, but most of the time with quant trading, you're not really going to get these sorts of questions. But regardless, here are just like some general like big ideas. I would say like if I could bold one thing on the slide, I would just bold LeetCode. I think a while back in the advice channel, I think Rachel posted some good advice regarding like how to prepare via LeetCode. I definitely reference that. But in general, I would say for better or for worse, it's kind of all about like, can you do these LeetCode problems to a certain extent? So say if you want to work in like SWE, just grind LeetCode and you'll be like well on your way. Yeah, that's my expert advice. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, yeah, so this is just like general like tips for like what you want to do during like a coding interview. So I would say like the number one thing is like always make sure you're clear on what the objective is. That's like first and foremost, right? So it's possible that you don't necessarily know how to get there immediately, but if you're unsure about even like what you're supposed to be trying to do, that's like an immediate L, right? So like make sure you're asking those questions to your interviewers. Half of the interview is also about the interviewer getting a sense for what it's like to work with you, what it's like to see you in like an environment where you need to like work through something, and showing that you can communicate is a big deal, right? So ask those questions. Don't feel like asking questions makes it seem like you're not as strong of a programmer. Just make sure you're communicating. And I guess that also goes with this next bullet point. Make sure you're explaining your thought process, and bugs are okay. I write really buggy code, but it's okay. Just as long as you can get through the debugging process, you're gonna be fine.
Agreed.
Cool. Yeah, so here's like a bit of a summary. I don't think there's too much for me to say here. Like we mentioned earlier, like all of these things we're gonna go into like much more detail in like future workshops. So I think for now, we'll just have the slide up here for reference, but not much for me to add at the moment, I don't think.
Yeah, I'll leave it up for like a few more seconds in case anyone wants to jot anything down. Cool.
All right, the next slide is about data science. Okay, I think I personally have not applied for data science roles. So this is essentially what we sort of gathered from, I guess, people who have done this more. But in general, like a lot of the data science and statistics classes here are really helpful. I think I'd probably even add like 153 to this. Like time series is also pretty useful. But in general, just like getting that like fundamental like data analysis skill, just like basic modeling skills, that's going to take you a long way. So I think on this slide, I want to give a big shout out to like 189. It's huge for getting like a firm understanding of like the fundamentals of machine learning. Data 100 is also huge for kind of maybe like a more hands-on approach where you're actually doing things that you maybe do like on the job, right? Like working with the pandas data frame, like using sklearn, things like that. So yeah. All right, so this is probably where the only slide which I can sort of like talk about and I feel like qualified to talk about. But I guess this is sort of an overview of what the core components of a quant trading interview process might look like. So I've sort of bolded two things under probability. So we have Bayes rule and Markov chains. If you haven't heard of these, it's okay. You'll get to it at some point if you decide that you want to learn more about probability. The reason why these are bolded is because I would say that roughly, I'm probably like messing up, like this is probably a bad estimate, but like maybe like 80% of the interviews I've done has like one question using at least one of these two. So it's a huge topic to be able to understand. And then this next bullet point, doing expected value and variance calculations quickly can also take you a long way. Sometimes there's more like interactive interviews where you need to make decisions on the spot, and being able to do these calculations can help a lot. This next bullet point probably isn't as crucial, but like I guess you should know like probability distributions. Sometimes the normal distribution is helpful if you want to make an estimate and you want to assume that some quantity is like roughly normal. That can sometimes help. Let's see. So I'd really recommend 126, but I've also heard good things about 140, and I've over the past few semesters I've like just happened to like glance at 140 stuff, and I'm like, wow, this is also a really good class. So I didn't take 140, but it also seems like a really excellent class. So if you are interested in getting into like the quant space, I'd say taking one of these two classes isn't necessary per se, but it'll take you a long way. So definitely keep that under consideration. This next bullet point here, I'm not going to talk too much about, but especially during final round interviews, a lot of firms like to have market making games. So making a market is perhaps not the most intuitive idea, but I think once you sort of see some examples, it makes a lot more sense. Like, for example, let's say that I don't know how many people are in SAAS this semester, which is true. And I'm asked to make a market which is like, let's say like, I don't know, like 20 wide or something like that. So what that means is I need to say, let's say that I thought that the quantity, or I thought the actual number of people in SAAS was like 110. So I'd be willing to buy that quantity for 100, and I'm willing to sell that quantity for 120, right? Because I think the true value is 110, right? So kind of being able to do like quick things with this and being comfortable with this idea of making a market can also help a lot. I remember when I was applying for internships last year, 1.5 years ago, I had like no experience with this, so I got like destroyed in like many final round interviews. So this is probably something that you want to gain some comfort with. We might have a workshop later this semester, which gives like an intro to this. But yeah, let's go to the next slide. Honestly, I think these next two topics are a lot less important. I think oftentimes you hear a lot of hype about how there's like a lot of brain teasers in quant interviews. I think that's becoming more and more rare from my experience. You maybe will see like one once in a while, and like mental math, like a few companies will also use it as like an initial screener, but most companies won't like have it as the sole initial screener. But if you want to practice these things, definitely doesn't hurt. And this is a really good book. I've read parts of it, and I can say that it's been helpful. I won't say like exactly which companies ask questions straight from the book because this is recorded, so I feel like I shouldn't do that, but it's very helpful. Okay, wait, is there a way we could refresh this slide?
Yeah, sure. I can do that.
Okay. Oh, plug for Quant while Kaveen is refreshing. Maybe one day I will post in that channel. Who knows? So if that happens, you're gonna want to be in the channel when that happens. Okay, so I don't know. Here's like a level 1 question, which is like, I don't know, like a pretty annoying brain teaser. To be honest, this probably would never be asked in an actual interview, but it's like a fun brain teaser. And like, I guess the thought process which goes into brain teasers can translate into other things that are part of the interview process. So therefore, it's not totally out of place. Then we have a level 5 question. This is pretty hard. This is probably harder than what you would expect to see in an interview, but I think it's a cool question. So if anyone comes up with an answer, probably not now, but later, feel free to message me. I think for time's sake, do we even want to do breakout rooms for the brain teaser, or should we just like next slide? I think we can
Yeah, I think what you said is right. Maybe they can message you later if they come up with a good solution.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so thanks to Frank for doing the technical part of our presentation. So now for the last part of the role specific interview process, we'll be going over product management. Definitely a bit of a more obscure role for a stats major. But as time goes on, you'll see more and more people in the industry kind of pivot here. So I think it's a great idea to get you guys exposed early. And who knows, maybe some of you will see this and find it interesting enough to pursue it throughout your college career. But yeah, so I guess the first thing I should do is kind of explain what it is, since I'm sure maybe some of you have heard of it. Maybe you've even read about it, but it's not super clear like what exactly it is. So what it kind of boils down to is you want to ensure the success of the product no matter what. You can kind of see that in this little picture here. It comes from a little anecdote of a guy who was working on a product where their servers were failing. Their maintenance guy had to like fly out to Germany to fix them. And he asked the maintenance guy, like, dude, what can I do to help you? Like, we have to make sure we get this fixed in a day or two. The maintenance guy told him, hey, you can go to my room, pack my underwear, pack my clothes to make this as easy as possible for me. So this has been an extreme example. As a PM, your day-to-day is not, packing up your engineer's clothes, but it definitely involves a lot of doing things for other people so they can do their job better. Your job is to ensure the success of the product no matter what. And that can involve so many different things. You really are a jack of all trades. Yeah. So to kind of break down the PM interview, it's kind of a mix of the technical interviews that Frank was talking about. Like you do have to know a little bit of leak code sometimes, not necessarily, but you have to know like technical concepts. But it's also a mix with like consulting and more traditional business interviews, where you have to do case questions. Maybe you have to like do estimation problems on businesses. So yeah, I'd say it's a very multifaceted interview process. And I guess for me specifically, it's something I really enjoy because I'm definitely someone who likes technical stuff, but also, using both sides of my brain, right? Like left and right. So yeah, it's a good mishmash of that. And if that's something that interests you, then yeah, by all means, I think PM's a great career path to explore. And yeah, to note, PM is not like a blend of consulting and SWE. Quite far from it, actually. I'd say it's nothing like both of them. But the interview structure is really, really a meld of both. So yeah, good clarification to have. Yeah, so within the PM process, there are 5 different parts to it. There's design, so kind of maybe how you would design a solution to a problem. And this is a little tangential, but like even design like UI, UX, kind of going into like the aesthetics of the app. Strategy, like maybe how you want to go about launching a problem or a product, how you'd go about solving crises that occur. Estimation. So these are kind of little brain teasers where you have to estimate given some parameters, like, I don't know, how many users are on like Google Maps at a given time, or like how many iPhone users are in the world, that sort of thing. Technical. So kind of going over basic technical concepts. Maybe they'll have you do some like basic leak code, data structures type stuff. I want to note, like, this one is definitely a little iffy. Like there's some companies like Google that are real sticklers about it. You know, they want all their PMs to be good at leak code. There's others that really don't care. Like you can come in, know absolutely nothing and do a phenomenal job. But yeah, it's definitely part of the process. And then behavioral, which definitely generalizes to pretty much any other role that exists, but it's definitely a part of PM. Yeah. So technical and behavioral are pretty similar to SWE. Technical tends to be a little easier, but nonetheless, it does exist. And like I said earlier, this is more to give you like an exposure to what PM interviews are like. So we'll go over only estimation today, just to give you an idea. And then in a future workshop, we'll go more in depth, kind of teach you guys how to solve all 5 parts of the PM interview process, and hopefully prep for you guys if you're ever interested in pursuing a PM career. Yeah, so estimation. It's more about learning your thought process. You know, it's really open-ended. There's no such thing as a correct answer. Just kind of seeing like, are they creative? Do they think about the different aspects of a problem? Do they have tunnel vision? That sort of thing. They just want to see that you're a creative, quick thinking person, you know, who can get the job done. You're not like too focused on one thing. You're open-ended. You go about and look at all the aspects of a problem they may be facing. So I think the examples I gave before were very like tech specific, but they can be super general, you know, like what is the weight of the Empire State Building? How many golf balls can fit inside a Boeing 747? Yeah, it can be all over the place. They just want to see like your thought process. Yeah. So you want to solve it within some sort of structure. Maybe you can use a framework, maybe you can use a top-down approach where you start at the top, get more specific as time goes on. I'll go more in depth in that in another slide. And another important thing is it might be helpful to learn about critical facts about the company. For example, maybe you want to know the market share of one of their products, what the revenue is, what the profit is, et cetera, et cetera. Just because it's totally plausible where a company may interview you about the product itself. And if you don't have like these general numbers ahead of time, your estimation may be way off. And again, like your estimation doesn't need to be perfect, but they want to see that like you have an idea, your thought process is there, you did your research, that sort of thing. And this is definitely something that I've gone like caught with my pants down on. I think it was Reddit where I was interviewing for their ad team, and I straight up had like no idea about any of their analytics. Like I did not research it at all. I just vaguely knew like they were like maybe on the bottom end of the market share. But if I'd known more about it, I think I would have been able to answer my interviewers' questions more on the fly. So yeah, for estimation, it's definitely one of those things where you want to do your research, even a little bit. You're not guaranteed to have a question about the company, but it can definitely happen. Yeah, so this time it's your guys' turn. We'll be answering the question, how many ice cream cones are consumed over one summer, defined as June to August in San Francisco? Yeah, so I think this is a fairly open-ended question. It should be kind of fun to answer because you don't need to know too much to do it. And I guess we can use a general framework of like use a funnel approach where maybe you can think about the big picture and then get down to the little picture. So for example, how many people are in SF on a given day? More specifically, does it vary across like different months or times of the week? Does weather affect it? Maybe to get even more specific on the types of people, you know, like of these subgroups, you know, like maybe students, visitors, travelers, residents of the city, how many people are within those groups and like what percent consume ice cream. Just stuff like that, you know, you want to start at the top and get more and more specific and kind of add those numbers together to get your estimate. Yeah, be creative. Like I just listed like a couple ideas that came to me off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's like other great ways to go about it. Yeah, I see something in the chat. Okay, I'll look at that later. Yeah, I'll put you guys into breakout rooms and you can answer this question real quick. Ooh, there's a bit of an imbalance. There we go. All right. There you go. Oh. Oh shit, I think Tegan's like AFK. Oh, never mind. Oh, Jenny's not in the room. Shoot. All right, great. Everyone's back. Yeah, does anyone want to share their answer, their thought process? Remember, there's no wrong answers. Would love to hear how you guys went about it.
Nominate Jenny.
Thanks. um, okay, so some of the things that we were thinking of, first of all, people who live in San Francisco versus people who are visiting San Francisco. So that could be people from the Bay Area, people who are coming on vacation to California. San Francisco is really popular. So that was like we tried breaking down some numbers, but I guess I can just give like the general things we were thinking of. So obviously the people who come to visit, then the age groups. So we assume that people probably under 18 will want ice cream the most. Honestly, until 30 years old. So anyone under 30 will likely really want ice cream. So we can account for that. We know that summer is a really hot series of months. So ice cream will be very popular, but we can also account for the development of like froyo places, boba, other cold things like that, will affect how many people have ice cream. Also people who use cones versus cups. Yeah, so some of those things.
Yeah, A+, that was amazing. Yeah, that's like, I think that's exactly how I would have gone about it. And plot twist, this is actually a interview question I had. So I think I used a lot of the stuff you guys talked about, you know, people, vacation, age, yeah, a lot of great factors. Good job, guys. Yeah, I guess we can move on to the next one. So general PM tips, kind of again, you want to make sure you know a lot about the company, just because they'll ask you a lot of different things about it. You know, you don't want to be caught with your pants down. Make sure you did your research, you're very in depth. Learn a few frameworks, create one that works best for you. So you guys kind of saw that with the estimation one where you had that very, very basic like funnel approach. As you get more complicated PM questions, there's some like different frameworks you can use. But yeah, something to think about. Yeah, there's lots of online resources available for it, you know, like mock interviews, different books with practice questions, just that sort of thing. So yeah, just go out there and do it, and with time you'll get it. So for any of you who know you're interested and want to kind of get into it, Cracking the PM Interview is a great book. I think that's how I got my start. It kind of goes through the 0 to 1 process, you know. If you don't know anything, it kind of ramps you up into the interview process. And once you finish that, the following are great ways to really hone your skills. You know, the product manager interview has a bunch of great case questions, decode and conquer, exact same scenario. They both go over like different frameworks that can be useful. So yeah, that's it for PM, I believe. And again, plug for product management. I sent one lonely meme on there, but as time goes on through the semester, I'll be sending resources, you know, like maybe a more in-depth video or article on what product management is. If you guys want a more in-depth idea, I'll be sending interesting stuff in industry. So yeah, if that interests you, feel free to join. I will be spamming that channel very soon. Yeah, with that, talking about past projects and experiences, I think that's Frank.
Indeed. Yeah, let's get into it. So yeah, in general, this is a massive part of any interview. I think like I obviously haven't really like done interviews for like anything super important, but to be honest, when I have done interviews myself, something that I've probably paid the most attention to is how people talk about their past projects and experiences. I think that goes a long way because that's where you can really differentiate between maybe the people who got like quote unquote like completely carried on something versus someone who actually understood what happened, or someone who maybe made a big contribution or something like that. So just prefacing this slide with all that information, kind of what you want to be armed with is, you know, at least one personal project which you mostly worked on individually. This one you can kind of answer any questions regarding like, hey, like what's an example of a time when you like did this, or like what's a project that like you're very proud of accomplishing, and you can talk about like, you know, all the skills that you were able to pick up, like all the things that you were able to work through. And then also another project which, you know, you probably primarily worked on as a team, and this will take care of like all the questions about like, what's a time when you got in a big conflict with someone on your team and how did you overcome it, right? Honestly, like prepare an answer for that question. You don't need to say anything too crazy, but I think oftentimes like, I don't know about like you guys, but like I don't really get into like conflicts while doing projects. So just like think about like smaller things and how you can like maybe talk about them and have like a good answer for that question. I think most other questions about working in teams, people can generally just answer, but that one, like, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but it always gets asked. Yeah, this is a really important rule of thumb. I guess also 1.5 years ago. I'm not gonna say which project it was, but because I don't want to embarrass myself in this recording, but I had a project on my resume. It was about a topic. I didn't know very much about that topic. So the person interviewing me was like, oh, like this is very cool. And he proceeded to like ask me about this topic. And I like basically like did not know how to answer it at all. And like it was one of those things where like if you had any understanding of this topic, you would be able to answer it. So I was like, damn, I'm definitely gonna get rejected. And of course I did. So this is like a top rule of resumes slash when you're getting ready to like interview. Like make sure everything you can like actually discuss thoroughly and you actually have an understanding of it. It's probably better to just not include it if you don't feel like you're ready to discuss it. It's not worth maybe the extra boost that your resume would get until you're actually ready to discuss it. Yeah, I think we have an interactive slide now. Oh, Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, totally agree. Just one thing I want to add really quickly. I think a lot of people, they'll find that the project and experiences they have maybe don't match with the role they're applying to directly. Like maybe you'd have a 61A project and you're applying to a data science role. I just want to note that when talking about this, it's more about like telling a story, right? You want to think about what specifics of that project apply to the role you're applying to and kind of hone in on that, you know? So like maybe in your aunt's project, you did a lot of, okay, this is a terrible example because you didn't do this, but like maybe you did like some data analysis to like see what was the best process. You can kind of take that part of the project and talk about during your interviews. So even though like it was a traditional SWE project, you can take it and frame it in a way that is useful for a data science interview. So yeah, don't be discouraged if you don't have like quote unquote the perfect qualifications for the job you're applying to. Just think about how you can take your current experiences and kind of frame them in a way that really appeal to the person for the role you're interviewing to.
Okay, do we have time for this breakout room activity?
I think we can, yeah.
Okay, all right, let's run it then. Yeah, so I guess for this, that's the general tip is just focus on like what aspects of the project experience do you want to highlight? And the things that you want to highlight are the aspects that make you seem like a good collaborative team player who's like willing to put in initiative, willing to put in the work, willing to like communicate with others. So those are like the sorts of things that you want to stress perhaps. If it connects with the position, all the better. But I guess for this, you don't know what you're applying for. So
sick. All right, I'll move them to the breakout rooms. How long do you think I should give them for this? Like maybe 2 minutes?
yeah, something quick.
Yeah, I also think like Neha plus any other advisors are showing up in like 15 minutes. So yeah, you have some time.
Okay, cool. I think, how many slides do we have left? Oh, sick. Yeah, we're doing good. Awesome. Okay, I think everyone's back. Yeah, does anyone want to share an example of how they answered it?
I have a question. What entails a project? Like, does a project have to be like a research project, or can it be like very loose? Is how strict is this question?
Yeah, in the end, they're kind of looking for like not what you did, just like how you went about it, right? Like, for example, it can be as simple as a fast food job, where you were like multitasking, right? It's they just want to see that you're an adaptable person. You want to show those character traits. But don't worry, like if you don't have that strict experience, you're more than welcome to use a less specific example.
I mean, I talked about a ping pong tournament I did, but that's it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's dope. Do you want to give us like a quick summary?
Sure. Yeah, so also like I'm looking down because I'm like in the middle of playing a video game on my phone. But so basically, right. So we didn't have any tables, so we needed money for tables. So I was like, all right, cool. We'll host a pinball tournament. First step is figuring out what time to like the tournament would be, see who's free at like what weekends. Obviously couldn't be like an ACT weekend. It had to be like, like a weekend where like people weren't out of town, so like not Thanksgiving. We decided on the weekend after like sending out a bunch of like interest forms and stuff to like all the clubs we were in. Afterwards, we had to find a venue to like play at, and it needed to be big enough. I talked to the athletic director like so many times, and he said no like each time. And then I finally pull up with one of my friends who was like, he was going D1 for baseball for Dartmouth. The activity director absolutely loved him. And then he like as soon as I showed up with him, he's like, all right, cool, yeah, just take the gym for the weekend. I'm like, oh my god, no, fuck man. So anyway, so we get the gym, right? Afterwards, we have to figure out how to get like spot like teachers willing to like chaperone us. So we ended up like getting like 2 teachers chaperone us. So it was like pretty easy, just like ask really nicely. And then finally we had to get tables for the tournament. I only had a table, so I just like only one table like within like my friend group. So I just asked like all my like people in my class, like my classmates, like, bro, please like let me just like pull up to your house the night before, grab a table. So like the night before, just like my entire like friend group, we kind of just like drove around in our mom's like minivans and just like stole tables from people, like reassembled it at the gym, and then like yeah, so it was pretty cool, pretty hype.
Yeah, I liked it, dude. You really showed your persistence. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, so interviews, do's and don'ts.
Yeah, this is a fun one. I think honestly, like most of this is common sense. Some of you I have not really met, some of you I have met. But I'm sure that you're all like very normal people who like don't do outrageous things. And if this describes you, then you don't really need to worry about this too much, right? Just be you and you're gonna be fine. I'd say the biggest thing is maybe that second to last one. Don't be too nervous, right? When you get nervous, you start presenting yourself as someone that maybe isn't satisfying all the bullet points above, right? But communicate clearly. That's huge. Like I mentioned earlier, people want to see that like you can like talk, and like once you actually work at the company, you're not going to just be like off in the corner, because people generally don't want to hire like people who are just going to like ignore everyone else. I think Kaveen also touched on a lot of this. Like, make sure you research the company. That's huge for sure. And I think, yeah, match the vibe of the interviewer. I think it's a fun one. It's like mirroring, right? Has anyone seen like the Office episode where like Andy like shows up and like, yeah, I don't know how good I feel about this. Maybe like don't do it that extremely, but like
Wait, are you talking about
maybe
like
if
when
they
he was
smell,
like, was it like when he like showed up as like a farmer? Like, where's that?
I
Never
think
mind,
I think
I'm
it's like
tripping.
when you like I think it's when you like first showed up and like basically like whatever like Michael
Just like
said,
did
like you
whatever
just like
Michael
said the
did.
same
Okay.
shit right back at him.
No,
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about that one time where like Dwight showed up as like Andy, but like he was like
Yeah.
Cornell, everything.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe not like that extreme, but like maybe if they smile, don't like frown at them. Yeah. And let's go to the don'ts.
Yeah. I just wanted to add to like the match the vibe thing. Yeah, make sure your interviewer, like, you kind of get a gauge of their personality. Cause like I've had a few where like I'd be like making these bad jokes and then they'd just be like stone facing me and I'd be like sitting there really awkwardly. So yeah, read the room. Make sure you kind of match what they want out of this. And it should be easy to gauge within a few minutes. But yeah, the don'ts.
Don't. Yeah. Sometimes it may be very tempting to make negative comments about previous employers. I would imagine this is especially true once you actually are working full time. I think as an intern, you can typically just say like, oh, like I want to try something new, and that's like always commonly accepted. But imagine as a full timer, if you're like working on like your second full time job, and someone asks like, yo, like why'd you leave the previous place? Just keep in mind you don't want to be like trashing that previous place because for obvious reasons, right? This new company is going to be like, yo, they're going to trash us too, so like let's probably not hire this person. Some of this is the opposite of stuff from the do slide. So if you have the do slide covered, you should be pretty comfortable here. Like, don't be vague, don't be late. Know things on your resume. Oh, this is a huge one. If you pretend to know things that you don't, you'll just like become a bit of a temporary laughing stock for like the 2 minutes in which they like review your application and whatnot. So don't do that. But at the same time, don't sell yourself short, right? So like go in there confident about your abilities. What I like to think is that like most people are qualified to do most of these jobs, right? You just have to believe in yourself and you can do it, especially if you're prepared. And yeah, this last bullet point is something worth keeping in mind.
Cool. Yeah. So now we can talk about comparing offers. So congrats, you've got your offers. This is definitely a good problem to have, having to choose between multiple. But it can be daunting, there's just so much that goes into it. The first time you do it, you can be a bit lost. So hopefully we can kind of go over some of those points right now. So this is definitely a personal thing for me. I'm sure other people have different processes, but I think these are some pretty main bullet points to look at. First, you should look at like the work, like what work will I be doing? Maybe what are the technologies and domains involved? Because a lot of the time, maybe you'll see like one company that, is your dream company, right? Like you're doing like X and Y. It's exactly what you want to do all the time. But maybe other aspects of the company aren't as ideal. Like maybe they're located in, I don't know, Oklahoma City. Sorry if anyone's from OKC. Maybe they have like a worse salary, that sort of thing. But in the end, it's like about prioritizing, right? Like, do I really love what I'm going to be working on? Is that worth the trade-offs? So yeah, just different things to look at in that sense, like salary, location, growth. Like, does the company have a lot of growth opportunities for you? Will you be stuck at the same role for 10 years? Will they be promoting you? Those are great things to look at. Another thing is like, are they invested in you? Because for some companies, I don't want to name and shame, but there's some companies where you're kind of just like like you're just a cog in the machine, right? They don't actually care about you. They're just going to have you doing the same role over and over again. They're not going to be too worried about like growing you up to doing like more executive positions, that sort of thing. So definitely do your research, see if they fit what you want exactly. Kind of look through all these factors, maybe prioritize what exactly you want. And I think this is just for me, like after a week or two, it gets really intuitive. You'll kind of get that gut feeling, it'll grow, and eventually you'll kind of see like, okay, I know this is what I have to do, and you'll choose. And I think while all that stuff is like pretty subjective, I think this last one I feel really strongly about. Never accept an offer solely off the name. Like, I don't know, maybe you get a job at a FANG company, but it's in a position you don't even like. Maybe it's at a team that doesn't even interest you. Like it's not worth it, right? Like if you have another offer that's exactly what you want, but maybe the name isn't as shiny, chances are you're better off taking the other offer, because like in the end, like this is about being happy with your work. Every day you want to go into work with a smiling face. And I think me personally, I think that's more valuable than having like a shiny name on your resume. So yeah, I think these are some key points. There's definitely more that you can think about, but I think this covers the gist of it. Yeah, so now we're going to talk about being successful on the job. I feel like this is something that is covered a little bit less. Like people talk about how to get the job, but succeeding once you're there is definitely a very important part of it. So I think for me, the biggest piece of advice I can give, at least for internships, is like putting yourself out there, right? Like introduce yourself to literally everyone. Because people really are what make the internship, right? Like you can do that work anywhere, you know, you can even do it at home, like in a personal project. A lot of the time, like the stuff you're doing in internships isn't like anything insanely complicated. But the people are something you can never access ever again, right? Like they are like a unique asset you have. Um, so definitely reach out. You know, internships are really networking on easy mode, right? Like if you try to network when you're outside of like your internship or job, it's like sending a cold email, getting like a 5% hit rate on the people you're emailing. But if you're at an internship and you're emailing people at the job, you pull the intern card and you're like, hey, I'm an intern, I started doing X and Y, I'd love to chat with you about it. Like it's literally 99% chance they'll say hell yeah, and like you'll get a easy coffee chat out of that. So yeah, I think that's a really important thing. Like reach out, meet as many people as possible. And this is just a rule of thumb, but I found it really helpful for me. Kind of aim for one coffee chat a day. And as you do more and more, you'll get better and better at it, meet more people. And for me personally, like the bulk of my professional network is like people I met from internships. And those people are really the ones, since like they know you were vetted by the company. Chances are they know your boss. They know they can trust you. They know they like you. And that can get you a lot of great opportunities. So yeah, I think that's my key advice. Like if you're in an internship, meet as many people as possible, put yourself out there. You won't regret it. Another key aspect is definitely asking questions. People are there to help. I know it can be a little intimidating, you know, like you're working your project, maybe your mentor is like putting out a fire, like maybe the servers are down, they're trying to fix it, that sort of thing. But in the end, like they're there to help you, right? You're an intern. The company is there to like raise their future, you know. So always be willing to ask questions because you're there to learn. Another thing is don't be afraid, you know, like in the end, a lot of new stuff will appear and it's up to you to take those opportunities, right? So like volunteer if anything comes up. Maybe your boss will offer you something. Chances are it'll be a good growth opportunity if you do it. And you can also make your own opportunities if needed. Maybe you can ask your boss if they need help with X and Y, and you know, chances are they'll say yes because they'll see you as like a young person who really wants to learn and grow themselves. So yeah, don't be afraid. If you see something you want to do, just go ask if you can do it, and chances are people will say yeah. Additionally, you know, you'll kind of see that no one really knows what they're doing. You'll definitely learn as you go. So don't be afraid, just go in guns a-blazing and try your best. I guarantee you, like by the end of your internship or job, you'll get really, really comfortable. Yeah, so this is kind of repetitive with the last point, but treat everything as a learning opportunity. You will never have this much time to free time to explore a company. So that applies to like networking, you know, meet as many different people as possible from different teams. You can really expose yourself to different stuff you never knew you would have liked before. Like for me, I was like on the NLP team at Expedia. I reached out to other ML teams not in that domain, got a few side projects from them. And it was a really, really great way to explore like different areas of ML that I never would have touched otherwise. And it was a great resume point, right? Like you can add extra stuff to your resume that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Finally, you know, be dependable, enthusiastic, and curious, because in the end, like that's all they can ask for an intern, right? You're not a full-time employee. You're there to learn. You're there to be the future of the company. So yeah, just be there, be a great person to work with, and I guarantee everything will work out. Yeah, so I think that concludes the presentation part of our little workshop. Now we can do questions. So I'll check the Slido, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute, ask. I think we have a couple more advisors in here who can help answer them as well. Yeah, if you guys want to ask the questions anonymously, I can link the Slido in the chat.
What do you think about like exploring different fields that like if you're not really sure about what specific thing you're interested in, like within computer science or within data science, do you think it's worth applying to companies or the internships that like explore those different fields, or should I try to hone down my interests before I do that?
Yeah, so for me, I have the philosophy that like college is about exploring, right? Like this is the only time in your life where you can try like so many different things in like short time periods with like no consequences, right? So if you have a bunch of stuff that interests you, like I highly recommend you go and explore. Um, like make sure you try everything before it's too late, because once you graduate, you might find yourself getting a little pigeonholed. Maybe like, I don't know, you graduate with a bunch of maybe you graduate, start working as a software engineer. It can be a bit harder to like pivot to data science, right? Whereas if you do that, all that stuff in college, you can kind of see what you like, what you don't, before it's too late. And yeah, another thing, and I think this is less of an issue if you're in college, but pigeonholing is a real thing where like maybe you do a couple data science positions during college. It may be a little bit harder to like find another role, like such as PM. So yeah, in my personal experience, it's great to explore, see what you like, and you can further narrow it down from there.
Thank you.
All right, question on the Slido. What's a tool or skill you wish you learned earlier?
Yeah, all of data 100. Also all of 189. Yeah, that's kind of a lazy answer, but I would say if you're interested in like some of the fields that we mentioned, which we said rely on information from those classes, I'd recommend taking it as early as possible. Doesn't hurt to kind of plan out a trajectory for like when you're gonna be able to take it as soon as possible, but at the same time be ready for it and be ready to get as much out of it as you can. I think I took it much later than I would have wanted to if I could go back and do it again.
Yeah, my answer is a bit more general, but I say like communication skills, maybe from like a technical thing to a non-technical thing. Because a lot of time you'll find that like, when you're in school, you're doing your projects, you're talking with people who are also like stats majors, CS majors. It's really easy to just like keep using the technical jargon you're used to. But once you graduate, you're working a full-time job or maybe you're in an internship. You'll be taking your findings, whether it's a software engineer, data scientist, PM, and presenting to people who have like no idea of the inner workings of that material, right? Like, like a CEO will not know what like all these like little ML stuff you're doing, right? You want to explain it in like the broadest terms possible in a way that makes sense to them, gives them the information they need, but isn't too complicated and doesn't confuse them. And that's something I definitely struggled with like really early on. So yeah, just figuring out how to explain things in layperson's term is very useful. And I think quite literally everyone in here can benefit from it. No matter like what technical field you go into. So yeah, better to learn early than later. Yeah, any other questions? All right, cool. If not, you're more than welcome to write on the advice channel. We'll be scanning there actively to see if there's any questions that we can answer. But yeah, thanks for attending, guys. Glad you guys could make it. Yeah, okay, resume reviews. They'll be happening in the next 2 weeks, so SAAS weeks 3 and 4. You'll be able to sign up and get your resume read by a leadership member. So yeah, keep an eye on the general channel for more information. This will be great to get your foot in the door, get some resume reviews now that you've been through our workshops. Oh, another question. How would freshmen go about finding their first data science analytics internship without help from parents? Yeah, so Neha has some great answers in there, like LinkedIn, Handshake, Piazza. I guess additionally, if you're trying to like, if the question is more about like how to break in without having parents who like work at that company already who can get you in. Yeah, exactly what Alicia said, club experience, having little side projects, just stuff shows that you already have the experience, you know what it's like to be a data scientist. Yeah, just get the experience in, apply, just keep doing it. Don't be afraid, you know. In the end, like you just need one hit, right? So just keep going for it. Yeah, I don't know if that was like a bit of a vague response, but if you're not satisfied with our answers, feel free to write on advice. And I'm sure someone who like has done that exact thing will be able to answer it more in depth. Yeah, if you guys have any more questions, feel free to type them up, unmute yourself. But yeah, besides that, feel free to scan the feedback form. We'd love to hear what you guys think. We take this feedback seriously, definitely use it to change our presentations up. So yeah, if there's anything you would have liked to see, feel free to fill out that out in the feedback. And yeah, I don't know if everyone got the check-in form, but if not, here it is. All right, awesome. Thanks so much for coming through, guys. Hopefully this is helpful. And again, like the advisors are here to be a resource for you. So feel free to DM us if there's anything you heard that you want to hear more about. If you want to ask anonymously, you can ask on the advice channel. But yeah, we're here to be a resource. So if anything comes up, feel free to ask. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much.
TY for presenting. Okay, bye.
All right, bye.